Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. As always, this is your captain, Randy Wright, speaking, and I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank you for choosing to fly over the friendly airwaves with us here at our state of the art radio program here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let me go ahead and delve into the topic for today's program. And it's a big one. It's the very topic that has been concerning me, particularly since the Rittenhouse case came into central focus with everyone. And the main reason this is coming to mind is since the so called Summer of Love, we've been seeing an undeniable pattern with respect to so many of the district attorneys and assistant district attorneys in this country that it's creating that obvious double standard. I mean, we can think of the McClowskys who were charged or attempted to be charged with defending their house when BLM and Antifa rioters were out there tearing down the gate and attempting to force their way in, and they were simply defending their life, limb, and property by exercising their Second Amendment rights by keeping and bearing arms. And of course, we had criminal prosecutors doing everything in their power to attempt to charge them, but that ultimately wound up going nowhere. The other major one that we had, of course, is the story in New York where their new district attorney is saying that he's not going to prosecute anything that's property crime. He, of course, he'll prosecute any anti Second Amendment laws. We know that. And we've seen the same thing in Portland. We've seen the same thing in Seattle and in San Francisco, where these crimes have just been going off the charts. But, they did throw the hammer at Rittenhouse. It didn't work for them. It didn't work for them with Dominic Black either. That's why they had to work out that agreement where essentially the two felonious charges were dropped and they charged him, I think it was with a $2,000 civil fine, is what I said in the previous episode that I did. But we see here that there's a double standard in the application of the law, a double standard in the way that they carry out sentencing, a double standard in the way that they want the law to be perceived. And it's all political aggrandizement. It really is political aggrandizement at its absolute worst. And they are doing everything in their power to pull the political wool over the eyes of the people, to bamboozle us, to divide, and thereby to ultimately conquer us. And it's all by design. But one story that really caught my eye here was a story coming right out of Baltimore. And this was over at Fox. Let's see who wrote this. Emma Colton at Fox put out this article, and it starts off: a Baltimore man who pleaded guilty to torching his ex-girlfriend's home said he was surprised by a plea deal he received, saying it sends the wrong message to criminals in the city. He goes on to say, I was just charged with 18 different counts. That was dropped to 10. That was dropped to 1. Now, when we think back to the immediate wake and aftermath of the Rittenhouse case, there was that driver who was a black nationalist who went up into that town when there was the whole Christmas parade that was going on, and he turned his car into a weapon, killing innocent men, women, and children. And he too had been released. He had been put out on an early release because they wanted to send this message. They wanted to claim that this was their way of basically responding to the notion of quote unquote systemic racism in this country. Of course, if you ever ask them for concrete examples of this, they can't give it to you. And it's because they don't want to give it to you. They don't want to think about an actual solution. This is all about political grandstanding. It's about creating a political narrative and damn the torpedoes, move forward at full steam ahead. But it's bad. It's awful when you get somebody who is, you know, being charged with torching his ex girlfriend's home. A man named Luther Trent saying that his 18 counts being essentially dropped down into one count is sending the wrong message to criminals. Well, of course, it's sending the wrong message to criminals. The Democrats and the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists here want to basically spread as much anarchy and chaos as they possibly can in order to make the American people overall feel as though there is this unbearable weight of things falling upon their shoulders, and that the only way that they can resolve this problem, to resolve the problem that is impacting their life, is to turn to the very entity that created it in the first place. That entity is, of course, the federal government. And not just the federal government, but government in general. Ladies and gentlemen, they want you to believe that the government is an end all be all solution to the cornucopia and plethora of problems they have created. And they're doing it because it's about power. It's about power. They want to have the power over you. Think of this whole thing with the COOF response, the virus response. It's all about power, manipulation, corruption, and control. And the corruption is running rampant in government. After all, we've got the father of Hunter Biden wielding the reins of political power in this country, and it's just disgusting. But Trent here goes on. He was charged and pleaded guilty to one count of first degree arson after setting his ex girlfriend's house on fire while she and her two roommates were inside in May of last year. He was released from jail after serving fewer than 6 months due to a plea deal from the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. Ladies and gentlemen, this goes right back to the initial point that I made when opening today's episode. This double standard that is being created by these various district attorneys and city attorneys is literally at the heart of what is causing so many of the problems that we've had, particularly since the summer of love, the summer of 2020, when we had the fiery but mostly peaceful protests, as the propagandist labeled it. And that problem is they don't want to enforce the law. They want to create this double standard narrative. But who is it that's getting hurt when it's all said and done? Who is it that is paying the ultimate price for this? It's we, the people. There's no way of sugarcoating that. There's no way of getting around that. It is we, the people, who are suffering the consequences of it. And it's not going to get better until we band together and sit there and say enough is enough, that we're not going to tolerate this, that we're not just going to sit back and allow this to continue unfettered and unchallenged. It has to be challenged. And I think the American people are getting sick and tired of this. That we are starting to advance to a point where we're going to put our collective foot down and say, screw you. You can go straight to hell. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And it's just, it's staggering. But Trent said he was originally charged with the 18 counts, including 3 attempted murder charges, but pleaded down to 1 arson charge. He was given a 10-year suspended sentence. He then went on to say that I went to the side of the house and poured gasoline on the side of the house. The love of my life is in Baltimore. I know where she lives. at, and I can't even talk to her, can't say nothing to her. In my head, it was some Romeo and Juliet type thing. If I can't have you, no one can have you, at least in Baltimore. That's the mindset that we're dealing with here. But he was allowed to go. He was allowed to go. But to show that he's not completely off of his rockers, he said that the plea deal most definitely sends the wrong message to criminals in Baltimore, stating that tells anybody that I can go shoot somebody or I can attempt to shoot somebody and I'll be completely fine. It would empower me because I would be like, okay, this man just shot somebody, just blew his head off, and he's just out walking free. I can do anything I want. I can rob somebody. I can shoot somebody. I can do anything I want. Now, there's another reason that these district attorneys, these George Soros funded leftist lunatics, are doing this. And the reason they're doing it is you kept seeing him say, I could go out and shoot anybody and get away with it. Remember the narrative that they were trying to push with respect to Rittenhouse as well. They want us to be painted in the most negative light as is humanly practicable and possible so that they can try and come after our guns yet again. They are stalwart with this. All of this is designed to be an assault on our fundamental and inalienable rights, liberties, privileges, and immunities. That's always been the left's goal. Hell, Roger Nash Baldwin, one of the co founders of the American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU, said that they would use the Constitution in order to dismantle it. And that's what they're trying to do. That is what this concerted effort is all about. But we really do need to band together and challenge this sort of chicanery and nonsense. Because if we do not challenge it, they are going to double down on their efforts and they will point the finger of blame at us, law abiding, hard working, civic oriented American citizens. That is their end goal. That is the game that they are playing. And Trent there was not wrong in saying that it's this leniency, this lethargy in wanting to proceed with actually prosecuting people, doing the duty that they are tasked with in polite society. They, of course, being the district and assistant district attorneys, the city attorneys, the prosecutors. They are sending the very message that we'll prosecute you if you defend yourself, and we will let criminals go. We will let those who want to deprive your liberty, to deprive your right to life, to deprive your right to property, we'll let them go. But if you go to defend those things, in other words, exercising a right, then we'll throw the hammer at you. We'll throw the book at you. We will make you suffer. Well, enough is enough. It's high past time that this ludicrous double standard comes to an end and comes to an end once and for all. Because this lunacy is threatening to tear this nation apart. And the only ones who can say no to this are we, the people. And the elections that are coming up this November, it is absolutely imperative that we pay attention to who's running for the prosecutor spots, who's running for sheriff, who's running for law enforcement, and who's running to be in charge of the city councils and the county commissioners. We have to be involved at the local levels because this is where they have done the most damage. Yes, the federal elections are important, but we need to be more proactively involved in the primary process, in the school board, city elections, mayor, the mayoral elections, gubernatorial elections, state legislative elections, judges, if your judges are elected, as they are here in Texas, um, and prosecutors. All of these need to take center stage for us because that is where the impetus of power is based off of the very structural design of our federalist representative republic. But over the years, the left has been very successful in convincing us that every election is a federal election and that we should only pay attention to the national concerns. But no, if we are really planning to orchestrate any meaningful and lasting change, it's got to be at the local level. That way it trickles up. It's the grassroots building up and going further in the long haul. Now, yes, I understand that it is difficult to pay attention to all of these things, but based off of what these prosecutors have been doing over the course of the past approximate 2 years or so, even more really, we can see that they have become completely and totally unhinged. And our sanctity, sovereignty, and security are all at stake. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is absolutely imperative that we get more proactive. With that, I want to thank you for choosing to fly with us today. I hope to see you again next time. Please do take care.